A cartoon about alien dinosaurs fighting each other? That idea should be amazing. It should be. And I wish it was. But the show we got was Dinosaucers. Oh, the theme song is great and energetic, but it's not the whole story. It almost promises a different premise for the show. Think about it. An alien civilization divided into two warring factions, both having a means of transformation for combat, and they take their conflict to Earth in the mid-80s. Sound familiar? It's the same premise as the Transformers, but with anthropomorphic dinosaurs instead of robots. That should be good, but as we'll soon see, that's not what we get. I'd like to remind you all that this is just my opinion. Here is every Dinosaucers episode reviewed in 10 words or less. This is a blatant ripoff of every Disney film reviewed in 10 words or less by JelloApocalypse. Links to that are in the description. I've seen this kind of list made for other TV shows, films, and series, so now I'm getting on the bandwagon. And also remaking this video entirely. The scoring system is the same as seen in the other video. Whole numbers ranging from 10 to -10. The higher negative numbers are ones enjoyed ironically, and the higher positive numbers are ones enjoyed genuinely. Although, I must admit I am kind of biased against ironic enjoyment. I really wish this series focused on the action and adventure rather than comedy. Comedy to the point of not taking itself seriously, it's just not my cup of tea, you know? Let's get this started. Please enjoy this list of rapid-fire reviews. Walk the dinosaur before establishing the status quo? Dinosaucers Bore Us with Sports, Part 1. Practical effects are still better than CGI. New Yorkers are truly a jaded bunch. You got a license to drive that truck, David? Ryan, was the blackface really necessary? They look just like their toys. Oh, wait. Not exactly the school of rock, isn't it? Kaiju are canon now. Totes wouldn't work if you're cold-blooded. So is Quackpot a serial killer or what? Morality is just like an on-off switch, right? Considering she's the only female, a love triangle is conservative. Never put your cat on a vegan diet. Even frozen foods can go bad. Free Willy theme plays. Hey, you got your WWF in my Halloween episode. The truth is, made in China. I'm not saying it was aliens. Sure, but the eggs I bought last week spoiled already. Dumb little mama's boy. What was with the 80s and their love of whales? This is why we need more ethics in journalism. Fool me twice, shame on humanity entirely. What's Pascal's wager doing in this beach episode? This West isn't nearly wild enough. Why? Satellites and weather machines don't work that way. Dinosaurs Bore Us with Sports, Part 2. These wacky Frenchies, am I right? Damn it, weenie.
Oh, careful with that joke, it's an antique.
Quackpot fails at comedy. It's neither in the MCU nor the DCCU. D- dinosaur student. Does not compute. Canadian brings the villains to their knees. Yes, really. Godzilla, but due to international copyright law, it is not. I wish I had a thick purple girlfriend. AKA the dinosaur who cried ancient aliens? Maybe the wizard will give me originality. I don't want some of that purple stuff. I wish Santa would give me a good episode. A dinosaur milking a cow. That is all. Brain cells reduced for clearance. Never before have I longed so much for extermination. Florida is no place for beast nor man. Film noir always adds class. If I wasn't interested in the Olympics before now, Bonehead really should be the one sent to the special ed class. Did Bonehead undress that lady in her sleep? Oh, how the tables have turned. So ironically, they turned. 2 furries shot dead by police. More at 11. This camp blows. Can we go home now? No service charge, but you get what you pay for. I'd like a refund on this episode, please. Necromancy never dies, unless there's a dog. Objection. Mistrial. All those other cliches. Screw work. I want to be an alien invader. You think your teenage years were rough? You wait until now to explain the planet's location. Now for the unironic top 3 episodes. Dinosaur Valley. The Dinosaucers and Tyrannos fight for a part of the Earth, including the living things within, and there are likely consequences for failure. An isolated valley is found, one that is home to still living dinosaurs. Yes, it's that reused plotline. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World remains firmly within the public domain, and everyone is willing to get a piece. It's rather fitting to have the Dinosaucers in this plot, since they can dino-evolve and blend in among the dinosaurs. The Tyrannos seek to enslave the primitive dinosaurs, and the Dinosaucers must stop them. It's what you might expect from the series, but I wish there was more dinosaur-on-dinosaur fighting. It's also puzzling that the plot of this episode was chosen for the very first episode. Introduce the Dinosaur Valley before the show's status quo was even established. The valley should be a real game changer, if not a worldview-altering discovery. I mean, come on. It's literally the lost world of dinosaurs, discovered on Earth. That's a story in and of itself. I guess the writers just couldn't wait to crack open that old stock adventure trope. War of the Worlds 2. This is what I would have liked to see more of. The Tyrannos invading a human community and driving the public into mass panic. Best of all, we get more dinosaurs fighting each other. More action and adventure fighting. You know, it's not quite up to the level of the Transformers, but it is what it is. The T-Bone Stakes. This episode presents the Dinosaucers with a real threat, the T-Bones. They are basically skeleton enemies, but the scope of the situation is much greater. The Tyrannos essentially have a necromancy device, and they're willing to reanimate corpses to invade Earth. Kinda reminds me of Plan 9 from outer space. Although this is not a zombie apocalypse level of danger, it's still an interesting foe. These T-Bones are basically indestructible. They just put themselves back together once they're harmed. Although it's worse off for the infantile reiteration of skeletons can't hurt you. They keep saying that comment because someone in the writing staff thought the kids at home are too cowardly to handle the sight of skeletons. And now for the ironic top 3. Allo and Costego meet the abominable snowman. The writers of this show must really like their vintage comedies because this episode borrows heavily from Abbott and Costello. I would call this lazy, but it would have been passable for the time, since the target audience would be too young to know. Furthermore, film records in the 80s weren't as easily accessible to the public as they are now. You know, no internet and such. If a writer from the 80s wanted to dig up old and obscure gags, he'd have a much easier time going about it. Because, you know, not everyone's privy to this knowledge. Although the old Who's on First gag is a classic. Dinosaur Dundee. It's odd that this series leans so heavily on referential humor. It isn't nearly as new a phenomenon as the public might believe, but still, I'll admit this series has had a few references go over my head. Maybe I'm uncultured, or rather, uncultured of the 80s pop culture. That being said, references to current pop culture don't maintain a good shelf life. It'll make the series unapproachable a decade after it's released, or at least dated. Well, you can see the problems that arise where people just can't really get it. They don't get the jokes and references. The Scales of Justice. The humor was genuinely good here, if a bit dumb at times. It's never brought up that the Tyrannos and Dinosaurs have basically revealed their existence to the humans. And like the bad comedy this episode is, there's no consequence for it. Truth be told, they've been doing a piss-poor job at it throughout this entire series. They're not very covert. It seems like the Secret Scouts are the only ones who care about it. The only reason they haven't been revealed is because nearly every witness dismisses them as a hoax of some sort. They're all too preoccupied with their own mundane lives to question their own worldview. Although, any children who witness the Dinosaucers have the correct assessment. They take it on face value. That's kinda dumb, and I guess it's attributed to this show being geared towards kids. In short, this episode gets its comedy right. It has that going for it. But I don't know. Encouraging kids to take everything at face value and that they're right all the time, I don't know, guys. I don't know about this. And now for the worst 3 episodes. Cindersaurus. The most cringeworthy episode ever. Teryx invents a ray gun that transforms its subjects into characters from Cinderella. Yes, that fairy tale specifically and nothing else for some reason. I cannot facepalm hard enough. There is no comedy within this episode, nor adventure, nor logic, nor dignity. It's awful. I'm convinced this is the worst episode in the series. What were they thinking? There's no such thing as stego claws. No other episode treats its viewers in such an infantile manner, except maybe for those few moments within the T-bone stakes where, they keep saying skeletons can't hurt you, they're just scary and such. Ugh. The Tyrannos plan is beyond parody. They try to convince Bonehead that the dinosaur equivalent of Santa Claus isn't real. The only thing they can gain from this is making the dumbest member of the Dinosaucers team sad. Yes, really. They act like stand-ins for big kids trying to convince the little kids that Santa isn't real. Even though Bonehead himself is basically an adult, and very much so, he's their own species equivalent to an astronaut. He traveled to another planet and was trained on how to do that sort of thing. This is like the real-world equivalent of an astronaut, full-grown adult who still believes in Santa Claus. The rival team of astronauts, they just try and convince him that Santa Claus isn't real, even though he's a full-grown adult. What? What bugs me about this, it's not the fact that they tried to reinforce the belief in Santa to kids. It's that they felt the audience itself was worthy of such belittlement. You'd never see something like this in Transformers. The Babysitter. This is another cringeworthy episode, wherein Bonehead lives up to his name by being an absolute bonehead. He had a scheduling conflict where he was assigned to babysit his younger brother during the middle of a holiday that he was looking forward to, and now he's stuck at home. So this episode is just him being an idiot while babysitting his younger brother. And needless to say, he's bad at that as well. Their antics are just dumb. Worse still, they had an opportunity to see some actual culture from Reptilon. We actually got to see their festival, a cultural celebration of sorts. But that proved to be a letdown as well, because their society appears to be just a dinosaur version of Western civilization. American history, to be specific. They just put dinosaurs in costumes from history and such. Like the Old West, medieval times, etc. It's not just inspired by aspects of human history, and American history specifically, but a direct carbon copy. It's not very creative. They even have their own version of Horace Greeley? What? They're an alien civilization. Writers, please, try and make them seem at least slightly otherworldly. And now for a noteworthy episode, Beach Blanket Bonehead. This episode has both squandered potential and a clue that alludes to something much more. It's a beach episode, less in the vein of an anime trying to show off its characters in swimwear, and more akin to the writers trying to channel cheesy surfing movies from the 60s. Beach blanket bingo. Because I guess that's what they think is funny or hip with the kids. It's generally just beach antics and slapstick. And the lack of females on both teams really comes back to bite the writers now, since it's an all-male anthropomorphic dinosaur team. All men this time, all male. Furthermore, Teryx is missing for some reason, and we're missing out on seeing her in swimwear. They don't even fetishize the males on display. Nobody is really winning here. And yeah, I said it because, I'm equal opportunity about these sort of things. However, something I didn't expect to see in this episode was Pascal's wager? The philosophical concept? The entire impetus for this episode is that the Dinosaucers and Tyrannos are obligated to make a truce for the entire day. It's Fern Day, a holiday wherein absolute peace is enforced by supernatural means, or so they say. Both parties are under the threat of instantly vanishing if they violate the truce. A supernatural threat that is never seen but is universally obeyed out of fear of the consequences? Who even states that nobody has seen it happen in person, but they are unwilling to take the chance because this is basically Pascal's wager, wherein the argument for complying with religious doctrine is supported by the perceived consequence, i.e., you'll go to hell if you don't do as you're told. Furthermore, hell isn't proven to exist. In the real world, at least, people will act as if it is, out of fear. They fear the consequences. It's a grim phenomenon that's still around today, and something I personally had to deal with. Something that's on my mind. And on a personal note, as I'm getting older, I sort of think about these things deeply and such. I don't want to be a bad guy. I don't want to do bad things to people. I don't want to hurt people. And the thing is, I don't want to be on the receiving end of cruelty either. I don't want to go to hell. I've certainly grown out of my edgy teenage phase, sort of. But, I don't really want to suffer and such. And I want to be treated with mercy and respect. And I hope I treat others that way as well. I'm uncertain if the writers were trying to present their criticism of Pascal's wager by showing the Dinosaurs as capitulating with these absurd threats, or far worse possibility that they are trying to indoctrinate the young kids into giving them the G-rated version of Pascal's wager. Either way, they needed an open discussion on the subject. But then again, it's a kids' show and they're not really up to talking about things this heavy, this subject matter. I would encourage people to think for themselves and actually think, use their brains about things one way or another. I feel that's the fair thing to do. And it just occurred to me that I'm watching a kids show and getting miffed that there might be browbeating of its viewers via philosophical theories and simultaneously complaining there isn't more sexually stimulating content. That's actually kind of gross of me now that I think about it. I'm kind of weird. Sorry if I've been bugging y'all at this time. Anyway, here's the credits. Special thanks to Eric Esparza Music for your cover of the cartoon theme. It was amazing. Special thanks to Sama Cartoon. Without you, I wouldn't have the episode content to look at. Post online.
And we'll see you in the morning in the GA.